Good morning, my name is Kirsty Dignam and I'm here to look at the weekly energies with today's Monday's Musings on the 25th of August 2025. To say sharing this video has been a process would be an understatement. I feel as if I've had a journey just to get to this point in the video. This is the fourth or fifth attempt at recording the energies this week that I wouldn't change for the world, because I've gained so much insight, not only where I'm sharing from, but the energy that is being asked to be spoken of now, to be given a voice. I originally planned to do this video first thing this morning so I could have the afternoon with my husband. I almost fell into the mindset that it needed to be about prioritizing and choice. Not just this video, but the energies for post-new moon Virgo. What actually rose was the decision to follow my instincts, to have the best of both worlds, to not have to divide or separate myself. So we went to the local community centre, a tabletop sale that was very small, under the belief that there would be nothing there for us, but that we would just go. And I share that, one, because it's related to the cards that I'm going to use for this week's energy, but also the trust on our own intuitive actions that are going to be really, really paramount as we lead into 2026. We are currently on the edge, particularly in Virgo season, but season-wise, full stop, we are currently on the edge of summer into autumn. And in the medicine wheel, that means we are going from more the maiden mother type energy into the crone. Not quite there yet, and obviously you have the male equivalent of that, not quite there yet, but stepping into the elder energy, preparing ourselves for that by providing roots with what we know, by deciding what to take forward, what to harvest from. And when I say harvest from, it's not all about what we can receive, but what we're going to plant for the times to come. So the first few videos were about my whole journey to the community centre, which is lovely. And, you know, I have 2 tarot decks that I've bought, and there are cards missing from both. The 2 of Wands from the Lover's Path, but also the Page of Swords from the Cosmic Tarot. And there are huge insights in that, collectively and individually, our ability to move forward based on the connections we now make, but also a need to mature our mindset if we are going to connect to a greater consciousness for the collective. For me, that comes in the form of not going over what we're lacking, but really concentrating and honing, streamlining on the energy that now wants to come through. I'm surrounded by a plethora of stone people that I've also picked up from the community centre. And when I say community centre, this tabletop sale, it feels very important to acknowledge beyond synchronicities. This tabletop sale was secondhand clothes and books. Tarot cards and crystals had no quote unquote right being there, but there they were. And that feels very important as well. This week, and in particular this month, as we go from the first new moon in Virgo to the second new moon in Virgo, lots of things are going to unravel. Things aren't going to be clear to start off with, but it's in taking every step that that clarity will come. We may find ourselves in places where we did not imagine ourselves being or feel as if we belong, but that doesn't mean that there's not a place there for us. You know, I see a lot of spiritual work in the corporate world, and years ago that would have been unheard of, but it's amalgamating. And that's that union of the Lover's Path Tarot that speaks of where we may be holding ourselves back, looking at where we may be limiting how we perceive ourselves and the relationships we think we need to connect to in order to move forward. I'm now being shown a deck of cards that I refuse to take with me. So, you know, being mindful where we don't act on our instinct as well, and the bigger message behind that. And they were linked to the angelic realm, even though they fell over twice. So I'm consciously aware of my own resistance there. So being aware of any resistance that we may have with our instincts and our intuition as well, and what that's saying to us in regards to the connections that we are more than capable of making and may need to make in order to make things more simple. The other card that was missing, obviously, from the cosmic deck of the tarot was the Page of Swords. Removing the immaturity is a double-edged sword, right? We can be too serious about things, which is why this video has taken the 5th attempt. Trying to streamline things too much can actually dilute our approach to something. We can overthink things. So being mindful of where those emotional obstacles may be, in particular with our mindset about ourselves, but also the other side of it. We don't want to keep repeating things over and over, because that can also hold us back. So this week, if there's any guidance for you to take forward, it would be what energy amalgamates all the different aspects of who you are. Well, I would say unsurprising, but it's actually not, and that feels quite poignant this week. We may realise that what keeps everything together, what brings us home, is an energy we've always known. This week, the cards that I'm going to read from are the Egyptian Tarot. They are a deck that I've probably avoided, an energy that I've probably avoided for some time. Yes, Atlantean, yes, galactic, yes, in particular linked to the energy of Sirius, not Sirius, Sirius, but also the higher vibrations of our own potential. So really feeling into what we may be resisting. I'm not suggesting that you have to rush through it, but recognizing what it is you are really avoiding about yourself. Some of the stone people that I have here are the most incredible Vogel smoky quartz crystal, which I know I'm going to be using for shamanic work. A tektite, a huge piece of tektite actually, which, yeah, is from meteorites. Okay, so that higher energy. Turquoise, again the shamanic protective energy here. Quartz, jade, tiger's eye, labradorite, amethyst, orange calcite, snowflake obsidian. These are energies that are pyrite to one side, lepidolite to one side as well. These are energies that are higher emotional cleansing energies, but also very applicable to life. So orange calcite with our levels of joy and creativity. Amethyst with our ability to transform whatever we are facing through that process. Quartz, rose quartz from the place of the heart. Tiger's eye, the wealth of being grounded and connected to our physical body. Jade, the luck that can come from that. Tektite, allowing ourselves to come down to earth this week. Any potentials, any wisdom, any energy to come down through our body. Why is that important? Well, that is the Egyptian energy. That is the ability of the gods. That is the ability of Isis, you know, of the Great Mother, of being able to, of the magician, yes, of course, being able to bring those ideas down and into physical action is the role of the seer. And this week we're going to be shown where we perhaps haven't given it the credit that it is due, particularly in the unions we have with ourselves. It's one thing to separate all aspects of ourselves and to try and understand, particularly through polarity, but if we don't bring it back together, we never move forward from the younger energies into the elder. And we're going to get a few insights into that from now, post Virgo new moon, into the next Virgo new moon, around about the 14th of September, I think. But before then, we're going to have, a full moon eclipse in Pisces. So we have grounding on one side of the full moon, and then we have Pisces, the most spiritual sign that you can possibly get, with an eclipse as well. So those shadow aspects of our spirituality, things that need to be illuminated, but then the other side, again, grounding. So anything that came up this weekend is going to go through a spiritual journey, a initiation, a rites of passage, in order to ground it more solidly by the 14th of September, to bring everything together. So, really important to stick to our intention. Also to acknowledge things that we may want to take forward as a result. I'm noticing that the Monday's Musings videos are very lengthy, and the intention has always been to look at the energies for this week or the week that we are facing. And much as a lot of the things that happen around us are relevant, we are going to get the choice to decide what we want to link into what we are being given, to co-create what we are experiencing with what we want to continue walking and bringing forward into our lives. So on that note, we can share some of the insights, but don't let the coincidences and synchronicities be the fullest potential, because they're not. It's one thing to see and it's another thing to do. We come back to that through our intention. So the intention is to look at the energies this week and how to best navigate them. I am using a deck I've never used before, and with that there comes an apprehension of tapping into an energy that we may feel less than familiar with. Again, it's that getting out of our own way in regards to resistance of energies that we've become comfortable with. You know, if you're more angelically drawn, perhaps experiencing more of the shamanic path, because that's going to bring that down. If you're more shamanically drawn, yes, opening up more to the angelic path. Looking this week, you know, if you're more intellectual, perhaps exploring your emotions. If you're more emotional, perhaps exploring the rational side of what is going on. Looking this week where you are in balance, where you may not be in balance, and what is being asked of you to ensure that. One of the greatest things of the magician next year, as we move into that creative cycle, is to ensure that all elements within us are balanced. Our mind, the element of air, our creative ambition and spirit, the element of fire, our emotions, yeah, anything that may need healing or shifting through that, our water, our psyche, and of course our physical body, our actions, the steps that we take forward to bring in that change. I've said it before, I'll say it again, there's no point having a healthy plan for weight loss or exercise or work if you don't put in the steps. And that's not a judgment, that's a really acknowledging our power this week to be the creators we came here to be. It's one thing to see something, it's another to decide what you're going to act upon, and then to take a greater view, expansive view of the responsibility of the wealth that you're creating as a result. Now, I'm not saying that it's our fault that certain things are happening, and really that kind of energy has moved on. You know, that ship has sailed. Looking this week where we may be catching ourselves in old narratives because we don't want to move forward. Being okay with being able to say that, acknowledge that with compassion, but no less than truth. Accepting where we may have been deliberately not reaching our potential so that we can say that we can't. Okay, I can feel a real difference of energy coming through with the Egyptian tarot. It's very direct, it's very matter of fact this week, or it has the potential to be. How comfortable are we with that? Does that feel enough? Do we have to soften the blow? Do we have to make it more complicated than it is? What point are we trying to prove this week? Energies this week and how to best navigate them. Okay, we have the Magician at the bottom of the pack, and it's interesting because I actually saw Horus in my mind's eye turn into Thoth, or Thoth, however you want to name that. But we have the Magician here, and what I'm really being drawn to, and it is the second or third time it's come up in these videos actually, the practice runs as well, is the power of the word. The power of writing, the power of speaking, the power of our voice, the power of our dreams, our ideas, our intuition, they're all part of the initiation that we are undergoing from now, well, always, but definitely from now until October, end of October. Now is a great time to really write down our magical manifestations, if you will, our magical mission statements. What is it we're trying to achieve? To really get clear, to bring forward that Virgoian, I can't speak, the energy of Virgo, to really bring that forward and get clear. Because in getting clear on what we're trying to achieve, we're getting clear on who we are in this present moment and who we want to be and the steps we need to put in place in order to do so. Why is that important? Well, unless we embody the changes, we never really see our own potential. Is there anything else with this card? It feels important to acknowledge that it really can be that simple. What I see with the Magician here is that it's already written. It's already been written, and it's about acknowledging that and reading that owning that and accepting that this week. Okay, underneath we have the Seven of Wands. There is a defensiveness there, but this defensiveness has the ability to take us forward, provided we can hone in on what we want to take forward. The defensiveness I'm going to leave to one side and acknowledge that we have the choice to do that this week. In any situation, we have the choice to decide where we're going to act from. So we're going to keep the Magician to one side overall. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and we're going to have an overall. Okay. I am being drawn back to the defensive card. It's going to come up all week. It's going to come up as an opportunity to decide. I'm really itching my thymus here as well, to decide whether or not we are, where we are reacting from. Okay, where we are reacting from. Is it an allergic reaction? Is it coming from a point of view of stress? Underneath, overall, we have the Three of Pentacles. All I can see in the center of this card is the bird-like image prepared. Okay, stood ready, facing things head on. We can want things, we can look at all the relationships we need to connect to or the steps that we want to take, but unless we're willing to face things head on with courage, conviction and honesty this week, we're not going to get a different perspective. So I could have quite easily carried on with the other videos, and there was the temptation there of not wanting to start all over again, but to amalgamate somehow everything that I'd shared and make it relevant. But the truth of the matter was, it needed to start again. The way things are being done on an individual and collective level need to be fine-tuned, and some aspects need to be released, the other aspects got on with and started again this week. Because we're collaborating from a place that we no longer relate or reside to. We're collaborating collectively from a place that's very wounded, that hasn't actually embodied the changes that have occurred. On the Monday, we have the Fool card. We do have that new journey. Acknowledging that it is a journey that is already pre-written. Being aware of the path that we are walking as a result. If we know something is going to happen, particularly in the predictive world, particularly in the intuitive world, if we know something is going to happen, how does that affect our ability to walk that path as if we don't? How open does that leave us? Particularly our vision. You see the Eye of Horus here. How open does that leave our vision to what has been written and what we're going to add to that in the steps that we take? In this card in particular, there is no dog. What there is a crocodile or an alligator smack bam in front of the traveller, almost like we can't move forward until we face that. It's ironic because the deck that I'm the deck that I'm creating, which feels very relevant because I've been putting it off for some time, it feels relevant to look at what we've been creating, the resistance behind it, but also how important it is in our progression to complete that. The deck that I'm creating, the crocodile, is the Wheel of Fortune. Acknowledging the change comes by recognizing things that we haven't continued, paths that we have perhaps held back on, and the impact that that has had on our own vision. When we don't complete something, when we don't follow through with our dreams, we stop dreaming. On the Tuesday, we have the Three of Cups, and everything here is in flow, and that's all I want to really share with the Three of Cups. With every creation, there's a flow, and it's important to recognize that and to tap into that wisdom. Not to get caught up in every stage, but allow them to move through you as the vessel. On the Tuesday. On the Wednesday, we then have the Ace of Spades or the Ace of Swords, which gives us a new way of seeing things. And what I can see here is almost Hathor's crown, a new way of seeing abundance, a new way of seeing the feminine, a new way of seeing our intuitive, instinctive nature, a newfound respect. On the Thursday, that leads us on to the Queen of Wands. And this is where I feel like I want to rush through. On the Thursday, take time. It may feel as if you know everything, as if you have all the answers, but there are things that need to be more transparent, more see-through. Underneath that box that she's sitting, I can see some eyes. What's underneath what we are finding our roots in? What vision has been hidden until we are ready to see it? Where have we covered ourselves up, particularly with aspects of purity on the Thursday? Where are we being asked to take the huge story from the Fool on the wall, that huge potential of hieroglyphics, to a more condensed version of what we take forward on the Thursday? The Queen of Wands, the ability to trust in our instinct, to go for what we now need by recognizing what we don't. On the Friday, we have the Eight of Swords, and this is where we have that crocodile, okay? That crocodile from the Fool energy here that is now trapped, that is trapped in the mindset where that change can no longer move forward because it's trapped in the mental mindset of what is going on. However, I'm being very drawn here with the Eight of Swords to see beyond the obvious, which is the Eight of Swords, right? But to really recognize in doing so, this card doesn't feel an imprisonment. This card actually looks like it's trapping the one thing that has stopped us from moving forward. This card almost invokes in me a temptation to look at the Eight of Swords differently, to look at ourselves differently, to look at our understanding of things differently. I was very tempted at the beginning of these videos to share what was lacking in the other tarot decks, but that's not the impact this week. That's not the focus this week. In fact, that's actually imprisoning us. By focusing on what we are lacking, on what is missing, we're not connecting to what is available. It's a very immature mindset that isn't taking us beyond our comfortable stage of enlightenment or ascension or divinity or relationships, whatever you want to look at, however you want to look at it. It's not taking us to the next level of what we actually need to free the changes from within us. On the Saturday, we have the Five of Pentacles. It feels important to pause on the Saturday. Smack bam in the middle of the Five of Pentacles, I see the eye. It's interesting because I struggle to wear the Eye of Horus. There's two eyes. There's the healing eye and there's the psychic eye. And one of them, I'm not sure which one, I struggle to wear. The other one I'm absolutely fine with. It seems to bring quote unquote bad luck to me every time I wear it, which is why I have none in the house and I don't wear any. However, I'm acutely aware that's my perception of it also. On the Saturday, looking at how we view luck, looking at how we view circumstances of life, looking at how we view our ability to see things or our ability to heal, looking at how we view our gifts and our vision. Are we doing so from a balanced perspective, from an ever-changing, transformative energy of the five, that center of change, or are we doing so from a perspective of victimhood, of attack? On the Sunday, we then have the Ten of Swords, and again we have that eye at the bottom. What I see with the Ten of Swords here is the three underneath, the five at the top, but there's a card at the top coming down to match the two here and the three. And what I sense, it's one thing to see the differences. What do we sense about them? What I sense here is an opening of the third eye, a trauma related to that. There have been things that we've seen that have been very difficult to see in our own lives and in the collective. That heartbreak is for many an opportunity to decide what we are going to focus on. The Two of Swords here, I can't help but concentrate on the Two of Swords here. The peace that comes from knowing your vision is your interpretation of it. That's not to say that terrible things aren't happening around the world, but your vision is a gift. Your vision has the potential to help you see a way to open the heart, a way to balance what is going on in your own life and those around you. Your vision can be a nightmare or a dream. It feels as if on the Sunday there is an ending coming to blocks in imagination, blocks in vision. Depending, of course, if we can face things head on in that Three of Pentacles. Underneath, again, I'm being drawn to the Seven of Wands, but I feel like I want to go back to that. I feel like I want to go back to this defensive energy to make it more complicated than it needs to be. And underneath that, there's an essence of it not feeling enough. It's okay to see what you see and say what you say, and for that to be your interpretation of it. This week, being very mindful about where you may not trust yourself, and the impact that's having on your grounding in your actions in particular, in your magic. And this is where I can see on the Magician, the card overall, the heron in the bottom here, or the stork, who is also a creature on one of the cards that I'm creating, which is the card of justice, but a heron or a stork, acknowledging where we've already seen these things happen, where we've imprisoned our own changes, our own creative endeavors, our beginnings, and the impact that that's had on our ability in magic, and the impact that that's had on our belief in ourselves. So overall, I'm going to call it quits there, and that feels quite important, to acknowledge where you're done, okay, and to do so continually if necessary. Overall, we have two major arcanas, the Magician and the Fool. Can we take the magic that we have discovered? Can we take the manifestations, the creativity, or the lessons that have come with it forward now in a different way, by facing the changes that we've wanted to create but have been avoiding in the understanding and logical rationalization of things that we have experienced? What are we really carrying forward? And what impact does that have on anything that we manifest as a result? We're going to become more and more aware of that as we go into 2026, because it's time to step into the power that we have for the times to come based on our visions. I almost felt like I wanted to keep filling the gaps then. The gaps are okay. The gaps are okay in understanding. The gaps are okay in trying to channel what is trying to come through. The gaps are okay because they're integration. Gaps are okay. Avoid that I know it all type energy this week at all costs, because you're going to lose out on some incredible wisdom trying to come through. All I can hear is the word lazy, laziness, laziness, laziness. And at first I felt like it was us being lazy on the collective, not wanting to seek beyond the obvious. However, it's a wound of laziness. We live in a world where we're constantly being told we have to give more, constantly encouraged to grow, to stretch, to, I do it, but I don't mean this type of energy, to expand. When I talk about growth, I don't mean you're not good enough. I don't mean that what is occurring hasn't reached its potential. When I talk about growth, it's embodying that truth in every part of the steps that you're taking, because it's that actually gains the wisdom. Don't get confused. There's a big difference between procrastination, laziness, and integration. Huge, huge difference that society as a whole has been encouraged to avoid. Integration is an essential step of change. Take time this week for that. Honor your process. Stop and start again if you need to, whether that's videos for YouTube or, your shopping list or your day ahead. Keep adapting, keep changing, keep trusting your instinct. The more you do that, it's like many years ago, probably about a decade ago now, I stopped doing quote unquote predictive readings per se, because the moment we would pull out a card, the outcome had changed. And that's the beauty. That's the beauty of the journey that we've walked. The karmic debts can be cleared as quickly as that. The healing can be as quickly as that, provided we can acknowledge what has shifted and what has changed. And we're only going to do that by giving it space and witnessing it this week. So there are 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. There's one cup card this week, which is the 3 of Cups. Celebrate. For the love of whatever is holy to you, celebrate the changes that have occurred. Celebrate your body. Celebrate the path that you've walked. Really acknowledge how beautiful you are, how connected you are, how flowing you are, and watch the natural growth occur. Growth isn't something outside of you that you have to seek. Growth isn't something that you learn, just like change and transformation. They're a naturally occurring process. They're a spin of the medicine wheel. So keep coming back to what you need to feel whole and complete enough to be such an incredible vessel for these transformations and these changes. Celebrate yourself as the creator. We then have, I want to be the Queen of Batons, the Queen of Wands. I actually am, astrologically, but I want to be that. So what do we want to be this week? Allow ourselves to dream, allow ourselves to imagine that, allow ourselves to move beyond the reasons why we can't. You know, allow ourselves 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, however long we have to imagine this week. People forget that the Queen of Wands has an incredible vision, but that vision is built on her own spiritual imagination and sight as well. So give yourself time. Grounding, yes, out in nature. Grounding, yes, in our actions. But imagination is one of the most grounding activities we can take as well, provided we allow ourselves to integrate what we feel and be aware of what is occurring in that process. We then have 3 sword cards, and I am being reminded of the 3 of Swords, but it isn't the 3 of Swords, and that feels quite relevant this week. We can be reminded of the reasons why something hasn't happened. We can be reminded of the heartbreak or the separation, and in that we can also acknowledge where we have separated things in order to understand it. But it isn't the 3 of Swords, so it isn't about that this week. It is about being able to acknowledge these things, but then to bring it back as well. The Sacred Heart, the ability to, with the Ace of Swords and the 10 of Swords and 8 of Swords, the ability to draw a line now, to see things differently, to see ourselves differently, to complete the mental process that we have needed to understand ourselves, each other, the collective, our path, by seeing it in a different way. That's not to say that it didn't happen, but to fine tune and to highlight what you want to take forward from that. 3, creativity, right? The birth comes from our ability to do that. We then have 2 pentacle cards. I am being very mindfully made aware that we have no wand cards, but we do have wand cards. We have the Queen of Wands. So, you know, we can have all the wand cards in the world, all the ambition in the world, all the drive in the world, all the spirituality in the world. But if we cannot nurture that through our intuitive actions, it means nothing. Okay, if we cannot connect to the pure essence of femininity itself, which is the ability to take what we are given, to actually receive, and then to take what we are given and create with it in a nurturing, beautiful way, then it means nothing. Or at least that's how it can feel. With the 2 of Pentacles, we have with the 2 Pentacle cards, we have the 5 and the 3 of Pentacles here. We can get caught in the this hasn't happened, so it was all pointless type energy. What needs loving there? What needs nurturing there? What have you gained? Maybe it is time to move forward. Maybe it is time to change that dream. Maybe it is time to look at where we may have been resisting that. Maybe it is time to face things head on and acknowledge our part to play in whatever is being created in our lives, individually and collectively, and to decide what we now must take forward to shift that. Maybe it is. Maybe these feelings of nothing changing and nothing happening are true. And maybe they're a wonderful, wonderful invitation to look at where you can change that. I'm going to leave it there. Take care, and I'll see you next week.